Imagine walking into a room full of people who are like actively plotting to cancel you.
Oh, man, yeah, that is a nightmare scenario.
Right. There are rumors flying around, factions forming, and just a sizable group daring you to do something about it. How do you handle that kind of hostility without, losing your own integrity?
It is incredibly tough.
It really is. Well, welcome to the deep dive. And as we navigate these intense, historically turbulent waters today, I really want to offer a genuine divine blessing for your day and for your entire world ahead. May you find peace, clarity, and purpose in whatever you are stepping into today.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. So today we are looking at an ancient crisis that actually mirrors our modern cultural moments in some surprisingly urgent ways.
It really is.
We are pulling from the study notes of both the Holman and the NAA study Bibles, and we're focusing on one specific text. It's the final chapter of 2 Corinthians, chapter 13.
Yeah, and that specific chapter, it often just gets glossed over.
Really? Why is that?
Well, people read it as just a standard sign-off. Like a quick goodbye at the end of a very long letter.
Right, like reading the credits of a movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you look at the historical context, the stakes involved, and the incredibly specific language being used, it is actually a remarkably dense blueprint for human behavior.
Which is why our mission today isn't just to dust off a piece of ancient literature. We are going on a profound look into how we handle deep conflict, how we understand the true nature of leadership, and how we actually build genuine community when everything seems determined to pull it apart.
Yeah, these are huge issues.
Huge. And they play out on our modern lives, too, in our corporate offices, our neighborhood associations, our family group chats. I mean, just as intensely as they did in the ancient, bustling city of Corinth. Okay, let's unpack this.
So to really grasp the gravity of what is happening in this text, we have to look at the immediate context.
Right, set the scene for us.
The Apostle Paul is preparing for his third visit to the church in Corinth. This is not like a friendly, casual pop-in to see old friends.
No, definitely not.
Not at all. This community has been actively struggling with open rebellion against his leadership.
Wow.
Yeah, they have been questioning his authority, fracturing into rival groups, and basically demanding he prove himself. He is essentially walking into a Category 5 storm of interpersonal conflict.
And his strategy for dealing with this highly volatile, unrepentant group is what catches my attention first.
Yeah, it's so unexpected.
Right, because he doesn't just ride into town throwing his weight around, shouting people down, or using his status to silence his critics. He actually opens this section by citing an ancient legal standard.
Yes, he reaches all the way back to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 19, verse 15.
Okay.
It is a legal framework that was later ratified by Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18. The absolute rule is that any accusation must be validated by 2 or 3 witnesses.
2 or 3 witnesses.
Right. Paul is laying down the law, quite literally, before he even sets foot in the city.
And the study notes highlight a specific Greek word here that I think adds a whole new layer to his strategy. The word is histemi.
Yes, histemi. That is a crucial verb in this environment.
What does it mean exactly?
It translates to establishing, confirming, or making something stand firm. The root idea is about taking a concept that is shaky, abstract, or purely anecdotal and fixing it firmly in reality.
Okay, so making it concrete.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Paul is using this specific concept to signal to a chaotic community that truth isn't based on hearsay.
Right.
It isn't based on who can shout the loudest in the public square, and it certainly isn't based on a popularity contest.
Right.
Truth must be firmly and objectively established.
That concept translates perfectly to how we have to operate in healthy modern environments, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, think about a functioning human resources department in a large corporate office. If someone comes in with a wild accusation about a coworker's behavior, a good HR representative doesn't just fire the accused person on the spot to appease the accuser.
Right, that would be a disaster.
Total disaster. You cannot act on mere rumors no matter how loud the outrage gets. You need an email trail. You need other employees who witnessed the event. You need a mechanism to establish the facts.
That is a perfect modern analogy.
But, I mean, I do have to push back a little here. Looking at Paul's approach, for a community that is supposed to be built on grace, spiritual connection, and family bonds, bringing in this rigid, legalistic standard of witnesses, doesn't that seem cold? Like almost overly bureaucratic for a spiritual leader.
I get that. It definitely feels clinical on the surface. But if we examine the underlying mechanics of this rule, it actually functions as an act of profound justice.
Justice? How so?
Well, in an environment fueled by rumors and factions, a rigid standard of proof is actually a mechanism of protection.
Oh, I see the connection. It stops the mob.
Exactly. By requiring 2 or 3 witnesses, he is stripping away the destructive power of gossip and, malicious, baseless accusations.
Wow, yeah. It protects the vulnerable from being steamrolled by the powerful or just the popular.
Precisely. Before any disciplinary action can be taken, the truth has to be objectively anchored. This mechanism prevents a leader from acting tyrannically based on a personal whim.
Right.
And, as you noted, it prevents a mob from canceling someone based on an unsubstantiated rumor.
Mm.
It is an act of deep care for the community to demand that the truth be confirmed before discipline is ever administered.
Okay, but wait, if he is laying down this strict legal standard for the community, acting as the judge who requires these witnesses, how does he justify his own right to be in that position?
That is the big question.
Yeah, because isn't a rebellious community just going to turn around and demand to see his credentials?
That was the exact tension in Corinth. They wanted proof. They were essentially responding to his letters by saying, you are coming here with these strict rules, demanding witnesses and threatening discipline, but where is your proof? Prove to us that Christ is actually speaking through you.
So they wanted a show of force.
Yes. In their cultural context, they wanted a display of dominance. They wanted a flex of spiritual and rhetorical muscle to validate his authority to lead them.
But he doesn't do that. Instead of rolling out his resume, highlighting his past miraculous achievements, or, displaying the dominance they expected, he points to a paradox.
He does. He directs their attention to the ultimate paradox of the Christian faith, and that is the historical reality of Christ himself.
Okay.
Paul reminds them that Christ was crucified in absolute weakness. To the Roman world and to the outside observer, the crucifixion looked like the ultimate defeat.
Yeah, complete failure.
Right. It was a complete loss of power and status.
Yeah.
Yet Paul states, Christ lives by the sheer power of God.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Paul completely leans into this vulnerability. He admits to this rebellious crowd that he, too, shares in this exact same weakness.
It's such a bold move.
It is. He basically tells them, you want proof of my power, look at my weakness. But he promises that his upcoming visit will demonstrate God's power through that very weakness. It completely flips our modern understanding of how a leader is supposed to act.
Oh, totally. We are deeply conditioned, even today, to equate leadership with invulnerability.
Yes, 100%.
The common perception is that the effective leader is the person who never sweats, never admits a flaw, never apologizes, and always projects absolute unwavering certainty.
Yeah, the instinct for anyone in charge, whether you are a CEO facing shareholders, a politician at a debate, or even just leading a local neighborhood committee, is to project a slick, bulletproof exterior.
Right, you never show a crack.
Exactly. If someone challenges you, you double down. But Paul is suggesting that true authority isn't about projecting that invulnerability at all. It is grounded in a paradox where admitting your own limitations and weakness actually creates the necessary space for true power and authenticity to operate.
Yes. When a leader can stand before a critical audience and say, I am weak, I don't have all the answers, and I am not relying on my own brilliance, but on a power greater than myself, it just disarms the critics.
It really does.
It builds a completely different, much more resilient kind of trust with the people they are leading, because it is based on shared reality, not a facade.
And once he establishes that authentic baseline, he pulls off a rhetorical move that must have left them speechless.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Since they are standing there with their metaphorical clipboards ready to grade his performance and examine his credentials, he just takes the clipboard and hands it right back to them.
It is a masterful pivot. He tells them, examine yourselves to see whether you are in the faith.
Examine yourselves.
Yes, and the grammar he uses here is essential for understanding the weight of the command. In the original Greek, this directive to self-examine is written in the present continuous tense.
Oh, okay.
So he isn't telling them to look back at a one-time spiritual event in their past. The command literally means keep on proving yourselves. Keep running the diagnostics.
The Holman Bible study notes are incredibly helpful here because they break down what this continuous test actually looks like in practice. They draw a connection to the book of 1 John to outline 3 specific categories for this internal audit.
Yeah, so the first category is doctrinal. Are you actually believing the truth about Jesus, or have you drifted into believing a version of him that just suits your current cultural preferences?
Ouch. That's a tough one.
Right. The second is moral. Are you actively living according to his commands in your daily life?
Okay, the day-to-day actions.
Yes. And the third is love. Do you possess a genuine sacrificial love for God and for the community around you, even the people you disagree with?
Putting that into a practical perspective is confronting, honestly. We are so used to auditing the external metrics of our lives.
Oh, definitely.
Like, we do a rigorous financial audit every year when we file our taxes. We do physical health checkups. We take our cars in for inspections because we know parts wear down over time.
Right, maintenance.
Yeah. But running an audit on our foundational beliefs, that is daunting. It is like looking at the screen time report on your phone at the end of the week.
Oh, I hate doing that.
Right. You should look at it to see how you are actually spending your time, but there is a deep sense of dread about what the data will reveal. Taking the time to ask, is the way I treat people actually characterized by genuine love, or am I just using them to get ahead? That is heavy work.
This raises an important question. If we are constantly commanded to examine and test our own motives, couldn't that lead to a kind of spiritual paralysis?
Oh, that's a good point.
Because if you wake up every single day running a microscope over every passing thought, every minor action, and every interaction, it sounds like a recipe for deep anxiety and endless guilt.
Yeah, that is the danger of any audit, right? You can become so obsessed with finding the flaws that you forget how to actually live and operate.
Exactly. But the context of this letter reveals that the goal of this examination isn't paranoia. The goal is alignment and assurance.
Assurance.
Think of it like a pilot going through a pre-flight checklist. They aren't flipping switches and checking dials because they are terrified the plane is going to explode at any second.
Right, it's just standard protocol.
Yeah, they are doing it to ensure all the systems are functioning as designed so they can fly safely and confidently to their destination. Paul wants the Corinthians to be assured of their standing. He wants them to recognize that Christ is indeed in them unless they fail the test by choosing to live in total, unrepentant rebellion. The self-examination brings confidence, not condemnation.
That distinction brings us to the core of why Paul is pushing this community so hard. It connects this intense inward audit back to his ultimate goal as a leader. Because, why go through the friction of this discipline? Why demand witnesses, embrace weakness, and force people to examine their own flaws?
Paul explicitly states his underlying motive for all of this friction. He tells them that the authority the Lord gave him is entirely for building up, for edification, and not for tearing down or destruction.
So what does this all mean?
It means that every single action Paul takes, even his threats of strict discipline and his demands for legal witnesses, are fundamentally constructive in nature.
It sounds like the careful work of a surgeon wielding a scalpel.
That's a great image.
Like, it is sharp, it is invasive, and it is going to cause pain in the short term. But the entire motive behind the blade is to remove a tumor and restore the body to health. He isn't just wildly hacking at a patient out of anger. He is performing a necessary operation to save the community. His authority is a tool for architecture, not demolition.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. If the motive isn't healing, the discipline is just abuse.
Yeah, and we can apply that exact standard to everyday interactions right now. If you are a parent disciplining a child who crossed a major boundary, or if you are a manager sitting across from an employee delivering a severely critical performance review, your foundational motive has to be crystal clear before you speak a word.
It has to be.
Are you using your authority because you are frustrated, embarrassed, and just want to tear them down to assert your dominance? Or are you using that authority to construct something better? Even when the feedback is incredibly hard to hear, the ultimate goal must always be to leave the person and the relationship stronger and more aligned than it was before the conversation started.
Yes. And that constructive healing motive perfectly sets up the final section of this letter, where we see a dramatic and beautiful shift in tone.
Oh, definitely a huge shift.
Paul transitions away from the strict, corrective apostle laying out legal boundaries and becomes a loving family member. He softens his approach and addresses this rebellious group directly as brothers and sisters.
He fires off these rapid closing commands that feel like a final plea for health. Rejoice, strive for restoration, comfort one another, agree with one another, and live in peace.
And nested right within those commands is an instruction that reveals a tremendous amount about the social dynamics of the early Christian community. He tells them to greet one another with a holy kiss.
Yeah, which, depending on the culture you live in today, a command to kiss your coworkers or the people you sit next to at a gathering sounds either overly intimate, completely inappropriate, or just incredibly awkward.
Oh, for sure. But to understand the weight of it, we have to look at the profound cultural context of the first century Greco-Roman world. The study notes clarify that a kiss of greeting was a practice generally reserved strictly for biological family members or those within a very tight kinship circle.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was a physical sign of deep familial belonging.
So, by commanding them to perform this specific greeting inside the church, with people who shared absolutely no biological relation to them, he is forcing them to make a massive societal statement.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this simple action was revolutionary in a deeply divided ancient society.
Tell us more about that.
The city of Corinth was a bustling commercial hub, highly stratified by class, wealth, and legal status. You had enslaved people, wealthy merchants, Roman nobility, and common laborers, all living in entirely different social stratospheres.
Right, and they definitely did not mix.
They did not mix. So for a wealthy elite patron to greet a common laborer or a slave with the exact same physical sign of affection they would use for their own sibling, it indicated a radical, subversive mutual acceptance. It proved that this community considered itself a literal family, transcending all societal, economic, and political boundaries.
It makes you rethink what the modern equivalent of that radical inclusion would be. I mean, we might not use a literal kiss today to show equality, but what is our current practical expression of that kind of barrier-breaking acceptance?
That's the real challenge.
Right. How do we signal to someone from a completely different social, political, or economic background that they are equal family in our communities? Maybe it is a genuinely warm handshake where you look them in the eye and give them your full attention instead of scanning the room for someone more important.
Yeah, or maybe it is going out of your way to invite the colleague who usually gets ignored to sit at your table.
Exactly. It is about intentionally finding the action that says the outside world might categorize and divide us based on our status, but in this community, we are kin.
Absolutely. And all of these intricate threads, the strict legal authority, the call for rigorous self-examination, the drive to build each other up, and this radical family-level unity across class lines, they all culminate in the very final words of the letter.
The famous sign-off.
Yes. It is a sentence that many listeners might instantly recognize because it has been used as a closing blessing in church services for centuries.
The final verse. Paul writes, "The grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all."
The Study Bible puts a very strong emphasis on this specific verse because it is a clear early Trinitarian benediction. It explicitly names the three persons of the Trinity: Jesus, God the Father, and the Holy Spirit, side by side.
But knowing Paul, he isn't just dropping a complex theological formula at the end of a letter for the sake of ancient academia. It has to be deeply connected to the conflict he has spent 13 chapters trying to resolve.
What's fascinating here is how Paul uses the ultimate theological picture of unity, the Trinity itself, as the practical blueprint for how this messy, fractured community in Corinth is supposed to live together.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Think about it from the perspective of a first-century Corinthian living in a society torn apart by factions and egos. The Trinity represents perfect grace, perfect love, and perfect fellowship, existing in complete, unbroken unity. There's no jealousy, no power struggle, no division.
It's the ultimate model.
It really is. Paul is essentially holding up the nature of God and saying, you want to know how to fix your divisions. You want to know how to stop tearing each other apart over status and opinions. Look at the very nature of the God you claim to follow. Let that grace, that love, and that unbreakable fellowship be the actual atmosphere you breathe. It is a final, incredibly powerful plea for unity among a family of reconciled believers.
It is a stunning way to close a letter that started with so much tension and hostility. He takes them on a journey from the tense courtroom requiring legal witnesses, through the uncomfortable process of examining their own flaws, all the way up to the perfect unified fellowship of the Trinity.
It's a masterpiece, honestly.
It really is. As we wrap up our deep dive today, I want to leave you with a thought experiment to mull over, building on the mechanics we've explored. We started by unpacking Paul's ancient rule for establishing truth. The strict requirement of 2 or 3 witnesses before an accusation or a claim could stand. Let's flip that standard around and apply it to ourselves. If your daily life, your character, and your motives were put on trial today, and we applied that ancient rule of 2 or 3 witnesses, who would be the witnesses to your character?
Wow. That's a profound question.
And more importantly, what exactly would they confirm about the way you treat the people around you? Would they testify that you consistently use your influence and authority to build up? Or would the evidence show a pattern of tearing down? It is a powerful, perhaps slightly uncomfortable audit to run on our own lives as we navigate our own communities.
Yeah, that really hits home.
It sure does. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. We truly appreciate the time you spend with us, engaging with these complex ideas and looking for ways to apply them. God blesses all the listeners. See you next time.